Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. This game that you see here, this little overhead shot here, is a fantasy game that has such a broad appeal to so many. It's got fantasy elements. It's got 7 different armies. It's got a whole bunch of maps, so there's a lot of replayability to it. And the thing is, don't tell anybody. It's actually a war game. Don't tell them. Don't spoil it for them. So today, I'm going to be talking to you about why you should be playing Wizard Kings from Columbia Games. Wizard Kings is a sandbox fantasy battle game, okay? Now, we'll get into the sandbox part in a little bit. For right now, let's just go over the system. Now, the thing is, Wizard Kings can be played anywhere from 2 to 7 people. That's because there's up to 7 armies that you can play. Even though most of the time you're going to be playing one side against the other, 1 against 1, or 2 against 2, whatever you want with allies. However, because of the special ability that this game has, because it's made by Columbia Games and has the Columbia block system, it has a feature called the Fog of War, which means basically, and the best way to describe it to anybody that's not into gaming big time, is it is Stratego on steroids, okay? I can see the value of my forces, I can't see yours, and vice versa. Everybody's in a little bit of fog of war of what the other player has. That's why when you're playing even up to 7 people, it can get a little murky with 7 people because of positions around the board. But as you can see here with this 4-player game, everybody is fine just seeing their own pieces, and they can't see anybody else's unless they're tilted or something like that, okay? And it really adds a lot to the mystique of who's got what, who's attacking where, and pieces do make strategic movements, and they can go from one space to another. They can't attack that turn, but they can move very far distance, so it allows these sweeping movements and changing of forces, and nobody knows who's going to attack what's what. And it adds a level of using scouts effectively. I mean, it's a really big thing because in these games, when you commit to attack a city or a stronghold, you have to bring a lot of forces to do it. So you can't take it lightly, and that's a lot of fun. Not surprisingly, Wizard Kings uses the innovative Columbia block system, of which I've made a tutorial at the link down below. I'm not going to get into it here because there's a perfectly good video that I worked really hard on to go ahead and teach you how to play the Columbia block system. It's a short video, and by the time you're done, you're going to be able to play any block game out there, whether it's made by Columbia or whoever, because they're really almost they're all pretty the same, much the same, just little tweaks here and there. You know, and Columbia Game came out with the idea first. A man called Lance Guttridge made up the system, and it's just taken off, especially in recent years, for gaming in general. In Wizard Kings, there are up to 7 armies that you can play, okay? And they are the standard fare armies that you would think you would find. You got the undead, orcs, elves, dwarves, and so on, okay? And the thing is, they all got their little bit of a take. I mean, obviously, magic is going to be a different one. While elves might be more healing, dwarves might be more orcs will be aggressive, dwarfs will be more defensive, and maybe some other ones just might be chaotic, okay? But that's one way they differ. The second way is, is movement. All right, so basically elves can move through forests a lot easier than anybody else. Dwarves can move through mountains a lot easier than anybody else. The reason that's important is because the game's all about surrounding cities and capturing them. And unlike other games like, let's say, Risk or something like that, it's not about keeping all your forces in one space and moving to the next to attack. No, there's a logistical part where you have to surround a city and get everybody there at the same time. And that takes a lot of movement from a lot of different directions. Okay, so movement becomes very important. Now, there are 3 units that aren't part of any standard army that we can talk about now, and one of them is werebeasts, okay? Now, these could be an army in their own right if you wanted to for a special scenario, but generally they're used as neutral units or attached to another army, okay? Now, as you can imagine with werebeasts, they wax and wane in power as the moon rises and sets, right? So as turns progress, the moon rises, they get stronger, it wanes, they lose power. Simple enough, right? Then there's the chaos creatures, and there's tons of these. And when you're looking at these pictures, by the way, you might notice that they look familiar. The art looks familiar. That's because a famed artist, Ed Beard Jr., did a lot of the artwork. Not all of it, but a lot of the artwork on these. So that's a little bit nice little tidbit of information. Now, the chaos units, you can attach them to any army you want. This is where you've got everything from your basilisks to your centaurs to your demons, cyclops, dragons, what have you. All right, simple enough there, and there's tons of them. And then finally, there are your artifacts, your tomes, your special magical swords that your armies can start with or find along the way. All right, So, and then of course there's gold and gems and silver. And the thing about the gems, gold, and silver, that's actually resources that you get from your cities that you can transfer to other cities to help them build more units. So that's an important thing as far as the supply and demand, or the chain of supply, I should say, in the game. So let's talk about the more sandboxy elements of Wizard Kings. Okay, now with 7 armies, you would already think there's enough variance going around to make every battle interesting, and I would agree that there would be. But because maneuver and movement is so important in Wizard Kings, it really comes down to the maps really blowing that off the charts. Okay, and these maps are 16 in all, and not only do they fit together, they can be turned, they're geomorphic and everything. They can go lengthwise, they can go widthwise. I mean, and the thing is, to have a good game, you don't need more than 2 maps at a time. I know you can, I mean, and you're going to want to do it. You're going to get this game, you're going to want to put all together and have the big game. I am such a sucker for wanting to do that. I mean, I got games like Ogre. I got my favorite Columbia Block War game, Victory, that I always want to do. And oh my gosh, I am a sucker for the big game. But I mean, for here, you really don't need more than 2 maps to have a good game, and that goes for Victory too. That one I like so much. But yeah, these make it so there's always difference in gameplay, other challenges to face. Some of them, of course, favor some races more than others. But at the same time, there's a lot of replayability here. Now, as I mentioned, Wizard Kings has a very broad appeal, not just because of the fantasy aspect of it, which is almost an automatic, but also because hardcore wargamers will like it because of Columbia Games' reputation with wargames, and they know they can make that game their own. They can make it as tight as they want it to be. Of course, casual gamers are going to like it because the ease of introduction to the game, and that there's a learning curve to get better, so there's some replayability there. But also, I can tell you that kids as young as 12 years old can learn how to play this game, and I know for a fact that they can. So parents out there, pay attention, because I taught 7 kids how to play the game at a game convention called SaltCon in Layton, Utah. It's a good convention. You should go if you're in the area. But I taught 7 rowdy kids how to play a game that they've never played a war game before. And let me tell you, if you got a kid that can learn, that knows this ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and rolls some dice, they can play this game. Okay, it's not a problem. I definitely I can testify to you about that. Now, the last thing that, especially you parents now that are wetting your whistle, you're like, hey, how much does this game cost? Well, Wizard Kings only costs $49.95, but there's something even better. You might want to actually get the Isle of the Dead introductory scenario that they have for only a penny plus shipping, which is like, what, $4 or something like that? And they give you enough blocks, they give you some labels to put on them. And it's a great solitaire scenario, and you should definitely play it. It will teach you how to play the system. You cannot win unless you learn how to surround cities. So movement's important. It really is a great little scenario. Check the link down below to get that for only about $4 to $5, and I'll see you next time.